Do you ever think that, like, us drinking beer on the show and just, like, in general and, like, whenever we record, it's, like, maybe, like, a societally enforced issue with drinking and stereotypes in Australia, or maybe it's just trying to placate us from realizing that we maybe have a very serious problem with our society that we live in, and I don't know, that maybe we're just kind of falling apart at the seams and rotting from the inside.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
Yeah, I didn't think so either. So this week we're doing, it's Absolver, right? That's this week's AFA?
Yeah. Doing, like, level design?
Yeah, and how salty are you going to be? Because I know that's always a problem for you.
I mean, it's, you know, I think what I've played so far isn't the best.
What do you mean so far? How much have you played?
Well, like, apart from that little stint we did.
Yeah.
With, like, Phil.
Uh-huh.
Not too much. Played a bit.
Right, so, you know the stuff, okay. So at the start, you know when I texted you and I was like, yo, dude, make sure you play the game. How much did you play this week?
I mean, I was, like, uni working.
Yeah, you were fucking busy. I was fucking busy. No, that's fine. Right, so you played too much last week and not enough this week.
I mean, last week wasn't really too much. It was just kind of like...
Okay, yeah, but we had a conversation where I was like, just play this much and you played too much. And now you've played too little, even though I said play more. Is it you deliberately, like, trying to like, not do what I'm asking? I just don't understand what's going on, is I guess what I'm saying.
I think it's fine. I mean, we can just, like, wing it. We wing episodes all the time.
No, we can fucking work around it. I never saw Assassin's Creed, so...
Yeah, it's okay.
This podcast is a production of Digital and Creative Media Works. To help support us, head to dcm.works to find links to our other show notes, Patreon, and merch. Hey guys, welcome back to the Alpharatus Podcast, official podcast of Digital and Creative Media Works. My name is David, DCM, creative director, lead writer, and I'm joined as always by my co-host Ben.
Hello.
What's going on, man?
Not much.
We got that pillow live, yo. We got that new pillow.
It finally goddamn arrived.
If you want a pillow like that, hold it up, Ben. Put it in front of your face. I don't want to see that ugly mug. If you want a pillow like that, go to Redbubble.
It's double-sided.
It is. Redbubble.com/people/DCMworks. Links in the show notes. Don't open it up, please.
There is a pillow inside.
I've put the dead people that I've killed in there. Please don't open it. That's where I hide the corpses, ladies and gentlemen.
The rest of the episode closing this fucking
and the teeth.
thing.
It's going to be hard. I wish I hadn't done that.
Yeah.
If you want to get one of those pillows or see the pillow, it's on our Twitter, and it's also, if you're listening to the audio, go to youtube.com/DCMworks.
Classic plug.
I've done it.
David.
I've plugged the show.
I'm also wearing shorts.
Now it's time to
so
do
you
the
watch
show.
my white legs.
Did you want to? I mean, if you spread your legs, it's like a couple of peek.
No.
What's going on? A little bit of action.
No.
Dang it.
I'm wearing pants.
Oh, well, that's everyone's loss, isn't it? This week, Ben, I thought, because it's been a video game season for us. We've been playing some video games.
It's like the old days where we used to just play video games.
Yeah, for the first time in forever, I'm playing games with other people. I'm not loving it, but you know what? I don't love the games, but what I love is playing games with my friends.
Oh, shucks, David.
I wasn't talking about you. I was talking about James.
Damn it.
And a video game that I do enjoy playing with I thought I would, is Absolver. So
I thought I would enjoy playing this game as well.
Turns out this week we are talking about the level design of Absolver.
Man, this game is
Now, a few things before we get started, because I know that you probably have some opinions that are probably wrong. So,
me.
yeah,
Well,
because I finished it. So, here's what my microphone just attacked me, which was fairly.
the microphone was like, "Fuck you, David."
It's like on the bit of the carpet that's not stable. Hang on.
That's a you problem. I feel.
You keep vamping. I'm gonna try and fix this.
Absolver is a troubled game. I have not finished it, so my opinion is null and void, as we know on the internet. If you aren't 100% the utmost fan of something,
you can't have an opinion.
You're not allowed to have opinions of it. So disregard everything I say this episode. It's 100% wrong.
Stop falling on me.
It comes from a place of ignorance and selfishness.
I fixed it.
And I should be kicked off the show. Please don't leave me, David.
No one else is it's just you and James. I have no one else. So I guess I'll say a few things before we get started. Do you want to give us a quick rundown of what the game is?
It's the Dark Souls of fighting games. Was that
I was
a good
about to say your
marketing one?
least salty version of it, and it's too late for that now.
Least salty? No, that's like...
What's the game of... What are they... Just give people a quick
Skyrim
overview.
with... it's Dark Souls with fighting games mechanics. That's about it.
Yeah, it's pretty good. Here's what I'll say.
It's a fun romp.
It's
laggy as hell.
Here's what's dumb. Let's get the dumb stuff out of the way, because I really want to talk about the level design, because I've been thinking really deeply about it. I was going back over all Dark Souls footage that I recorded, comparing it to Absolver footage I recorded, and there's some stuff that I think is kind of weird and interesting. So do your dumb thing. You got a rant clearly stored up in your brain there.
Dave, it's so dumb. Why do they make you fight more than one person at any point in time? the entire game is just like sifting you through these tiny fucking corridors, and it's just asking to open up. And then the game is just like, nope, back into a corridor. Here's 6 people you can fight at once. The first fucking boss fight, really the first major boss fight most people come across. Halfway through, he just starts throwing infinite
minions.
It just infinitely spawning dudes at you.
Bad design.
And it's just like, it would be okay if targeting worked. It would be okay if like there was any resemblance of like crowd control attacks.
If you could attack without targeting, that would be fine.
If you could attack without targeting, if you could set up like moves that really did well with like groups of people, like if you could say, I want my...
You can't do that. But just not at that point in the game. You
Yeah.
don't have it yet.
If early on they were like, your back left is like a sweep kick. It's like, it's not. It's a shitty like forward punch. It does a lot of damage to one dude.
Yeah.
And it's like...
It's
so
bad
much-
sequencing, it feels like.
Yeah.
Because they don't give you the tools you need to do well. They just expect you to know how to do well.
This game is, like I mentioned it a while ago, this game is probably the closest that any other game that isn't Dark Souls has come to like the narrative aesthetic of Dark Souls.
Let's talk about that later, because I have some fucking issues.
Right.
Okay? When you get into it, boy, there's some stuff going on under the hood that's really fucking dumb, and I hate it.
I mean, it's all stupid and not explained.
No,
The
but
problem,
that's...
there's no substance to it. That's why I think it doesn't quite hit it. Because Dark Souls is... Dark Souls is like convoluted and hidden, but there is so much to it.
The substance.
Absolver there is fuck all.
So the other day, James sent me a text asking if... So someone had said to him that Dark Souls 3... Well, actually, you vamp. I'm going to bring up the text, because I think this is a really good... I think this is a good way of pointing out that sometimes people's interpretation of a game is based on what they see, not the game itself. Because you know how like world building is very much up to your interpretation.
Yeah.
I think one of the things that this game does very well, and then kind of falls off the horse with, is like giving you enough to work with. Like it wants you to interpret a little too much.
Care? Like there's no there's no agency. No, that's not that.
It's not even that.
What's the cock word I'm looking for? There's no drive.
Well,
there's no narrative drive.
Yeah.
Right? There's no like in Dark Souls there's a problem.
It's not about narrative drive. It's about like character. It's about you taking on a responsibility. Like I was gonna say your play character has to like take on a
on the responsibility of putting a mask on and just really not being able to take it off.
There's some cool stuff. I'll talk about that in a minute. But so James said, how accurate is this statement that someone just made?
Okay.
Dark Souls 3 is a goth version of Witcher 3 with worse lore, worse combat, and worse bosses. And my response was, so just to repeat,
first of all, wait. So
no. Let me finish.
What one is he saying has the worst combat?
Dark Souls 3 is a goth version of Witcher 3 with worse lore, worse combat, and worse bosses. So
Witcher 3 has garbage combat.
Yeah, so let me my response was, I can see why someone would make that mistake. The only things they have in common are swords, third person, and fantasy, otherwise they couldn't be more different. Ostensibly they're different genres, and so conceptually different. It's like saying that it's like saying they're the same is similar to equating a tractor with an F1 sports car in that they both have engines and wheels.
Yeah.
Because I think the fundamental mistake there is assuming that because they look in some way similar, they must have similarities as games, right?
They're both role-playing games.
They're not. One of them is a role-playing game, and then one of them is The Witcher 3, which is like a story role-playing game, and the other one's like a Dark Souls, which is like an action.
Also, one of them's a role-playing game, the other one's Dark Souls.
Dark Souls. But I guess the point that you can draw from that is when people have these conversations, and I think this is just a product of reviewers being not good at their jobs anymore. And
they've never been good at their jobs.
No, but it's gotten worse lately.
It's gotten worse because there's more of them.
Where they go, this is just like Dark Souls for no reason, right? It's like, that's not a statement that has any value.
That so much.
What you should say is Absolver borrows mechanics that are similar to Dark Souls, and then also layers into that their own mechanics, so their fighting mechanics, the stance, all that stuff goes on top of that. But it's not a Souls-like necessarily in its execution, but mechanics of it are Souls-like.
I think it gets like held back by its Souls likeness.
It does.
There's so many elements that really, really work in Dark Souls, but in Absolver are just fucking obnoxious.
I think the one that you've touched on, which I think is really important, is that fighting multiple people isn't fun until much later in the game, when you have moves that help you deal with that. My biggest problem with the way
even then, the whole point of Absolver is you build Well, first of all, the whole point of Absolver is the PvP battles. Is the 1v1s.
They're fucking incredible.
Yeah, it's literally the best part of the game.
When you go into combat trials and you fight other people, oh my god, the game, like, there is nothing, this is just like a personal, there is nothing more satisfying than beating the fucking sweet shit-loving Christ out of another player on an online video game where they probably have played more games than I have, but I'm like, I get it.
Yeah.
And they just have, like, they're just trying to throw kick, and I'm just dodging everything and fucking...
You're surprisingly good at Absolver, I found.
It gets me
despite
randy.
you playing no fighting games.
All I play is Dark Souls.
This is the fighting game if you're bad at fighting games, but
you're
you're
good at
willing to you're willing to get good at something. Because
It does reward that.
because you can't play like a fighting game because it doesn't. There's so many like anti mechanics. Like from a fighting game perspective, there's so many anti mechanics.
Is there a bird orgy outside? That'll come up on the microphones.
That's just the cockatoos.
Because I just saw the
Just
pickup.
having a good old time.
Having a good Randy
Yeah.
shake and shag. Yeah, no, it definitely is that kind of fighting game where you really have to like invest your brain in it.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I've really enjoyed, because I've finished it now, and my best summary of the level design is this whole game plays like the first area in a Dark Souls game. Like it promises this kind of grandeur that you're about to
Interconnectedness.
find, and this interconnectedness of this area to other areas, and then you finish the game and you're like, oh, that
Like,
was
wait,
it.
that was it.
And don't get me wrong, the final boss is like pretty good.
Even just looking at the
It's one person, which was good.
even just looking like they give you a map at the start of the game and you're like, that's it?
Well, I expected it to be like you do that and then it goes
And then it opens
another
up,
one,
yeah.
and then there's
It
like 8
doesn't.
areas, but that's just the game's over. So it was funny, like when I was playing, because what really
no.
the reason I wanted to pick level design is that something that I think they fundamentally misunderstood about Dark Souls 1, and there's lots of good stuff about this game, but something that they misinterpreted was they thought that the interconnectedness was what made. It seems like they thought the interconnectedness of the areas is what made Dark Souls 1 compelling to like explore.
No, it's like the interconnectedness was there to facilitate
Yeah.
the exploration.
Ultimately, the reason that Dark Souls 1 exploration is interesting is because you have a fear of missing out on little nooks and crannies and secrets and items and finding cool new enemies and getting new loot and like
It's also fucking huge. Like Dark Souls
like,
1 is
size-
goddamn big.
it's ridiculous. But like
Yeah.
size wouldn't be an issue if when you were playing it, you had those options to go and find those little like secret, and there was rewards, and there was not just like items, but like intrinsic benefits. When you find an area in Dark Souls 1, it tells a story. Like you go into like you drop down a thing and you roll off the thing and then you land and you go into this cabin and it's like you can tell that the occupants were horribly murdered by a monster. Or
Yeah, I think
could- you
also just Dark Souls being the genre it is, which is not focused on PvP. It is inherently a narrative, quote unquote, based game.
well, it's a what's the non-wanky word for like progress based game? Because it's about playing
linear.
through the
It's a
yeah.
linear experience. It's
Even
not,
though people
yeah.
would throw a fit if you said that about Dark Souls.
Yeah.
I know what you mean. Dark Souls isn't
It's a
linear.
non,
You
it's
can
a
do whatever you
non,
want.
it's a non-linear linear experience. You play it linearly, but like it's non-linear.
But it's not dictated to you how you have to play it.
Whereas, so in that game, finding a new area and like finding, going off the beaten track, they had options of what they could reward you with. Because they could do things like give you a shit item that has really cool, interesting lore attached to it, or give you an item that seems pointless but like is used for like some secret boss later on, or like give you a unique piece of gear, which again not very powerful, but like
Interesting or different.
like
Or we'll give you an edge on a boss later because it has lore in it that may
or
be
giving you
useful.
some consumables that are really hard to find, stuff like that. Whereas in
Very smart.
Absolver, it's like you get your rewards for experiences usually just bad loot.
Well,
like
you either get
like
loot-
gear that has slightly different stats to what you are in currently.
Yeah, it's like gear that you don't need, or it's loot that you didn't know that you didn't want until you got it.
Yeah,
But
you're like, oh god, I got a cool new mask. You look at it, you're like,
here's what shits me, right? So there are a couple of really, really cool, really, 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 really cool encounters that like when I like the first time that you fight, and this is probably spoilers again, it's in the name of the fucking episode. But the first time you fight someone who fights in like the drunken fighting style,
oh yeah,
I lost my mind. I was like, oh,
Yeah.
like they just destroyed
crazy
me.
cool,
They
yeah.
reamed me, and I was like, that's crazy cool, right? And I was like, oh, there's gonna be like, again, I was like, there's gonna be like 10 different schools of combat. It's gonna be buck wild. There's just one. It's just the drunken thing. Like it's like
Wait, really?
it's like they just
Wait,
finished
actually?
one. They finished like the start of the game, and they were like, I guess we're done.
The sure there isn't more?
I mean, I finished the game. I haven't seen anyone else.
I'm pretty sure there's more than one school.
I don't know.
There has to be. There's a list. There's like my current list of schools is empty because I haven't found that one. But like I'm sure there's more. Right? Please.
I've only found one.
no.
And I've finished the game, so I don't. But again, I don't know if they're gonna do something clever because I literally finished it and was like, I have to go sleep because it's 2 a.m.
Yeah.
But I think to me, what I find interesting about the whole prospect of the way they've designed the game is the different areas you go to as you're exploring have doors and like hidden passages and all that stuff that you just can't go into.
Yeah,
Like,
there's so many like things.
You want to explore, but there's nowhere to go.
The worst part is how in the tutorial they teach you to break doors with
Never
with
happens outside
strong
the
hits.
tutorial.
Literally never happens. And I spent so long, like I'll
I've
go up
tried
to a
to kick
door
every
and I'll
door.
try to kick down every door, and it's like, why did you tease me? With
Don't
the
include that in the
promise
game.
of kicking down doors if you're just never going to use it. I mean, that's like just a minor nitpick, but it's that kind of
No,
thing
but
where
it's,
like
it's design, right? Like they just fundamentally missed that bit of design where they were like, oh, if we're going to teach them to do it in the tutorial, it has to be something they're going to do later on.
Yeah,
Right?
I think the epitome of this game is that it doesn't do enough with its negative space. So negative space is like stuff that isn't inherently designed into the system. So like for example, most like Easter eggs in like GTA games, you know, like the one in San Andreas where like if you get into like a building on like the top of like one of the bridges, there's like a sign that says like how did you get up here?
Yeah.
And it's like that kind of
Or in Fallout 3 when you get to the guy that you have to like use no clip to get to, he's like,
and he's just like,
how did you get up
How did you
here?
get up here? Yeah, that's filling negative space where you're not designing for players to get there, but if they do, you just chuck them a buck. You
let
give
them-
them something.
yeah, you let them know that
you're aware, and
Right.
you congratulate them. You don't have to power spike them. You don't have to meet their effort with a reward of similar sort of like, you know.
It's not like in Halo
you don't have
2
to
when you
meet
get
their
the
effort with
scarab
reward.
gun or whatever, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's just like a little thing to acknowledge. Just like you did a thing. Like that's funny. This game has none of it.
Here's okay. Yeah, so I feel
This
like
game's equivalent of that is here's a shit piece of gear, and you're like, I'm never gonna wear that.
it's frustrating because Dark Souls 3 is almost exclusively nothing but that, but they plan for it, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Where
Like,
they go-
Dark Souls games are all about that.
They're like,
you
you drop-
jump into a hole and then there's a dead body there with an item on it, and you're like, someone else has jumped down here
and
before.
you pick it up and it's like a piece of
It's
cement.
like broken femur, and you're
Yeah,
like,
and you're like, what?
jaw.
Or it's like a jawbone, and you're like, huh?
Yeah, you're like,
it's weird, and you read it, and you get some like knowledge of the world. My biggest problem with this is that what they did is they took the concept of the world, as much as undeveloped as it is like actually really cool when you get into the game a bit. When you realize that there's
like
this,
Mystic
this-
VR.
yeah, there's this substance that they use to create these masks, and if you have your mask taken off, then you go back and you're not an Absolver, you're back in the normal world.
So if you die in the Absolver world,
You die in the
real
Absolver world, you
life?
die in real life. And one of the coolest bits is the last boss you fight. Spoilers again. So the final boss, the first thing you see her do is rip someone's mask off and throw them off a cliff, which is really cool.
That's cool.
And I was like, that's a cool setup for the first big boss of this game.
Yeah.
No. So again, it's like this is a good example of when they had a really good idea and they had really good build up. Like the build up of when you get to that final boss, the way you have to go through fighting the marked ones,
Yeah.
the marked ones, and you get to that final boss and you open that final door and you go up through that big, there's a really cool, really, really, really cool level where you go up a tower, but there's like big holes in the middle and you kind of have to fight on these really narrow catwalks and stuff.
Right.
And it's very good level design. And it's one of the best parts of the game, to be honest. And it's towards the end, and it's really cool. And I was like, oh my god, this game is getting so good. I'm so keen. I'm so excited. And you get to the final boss, and the final boss is hard. Like, they don't fuck around. They let you get to, like, you get her down to, like, 3/4 health, and then she just fucking pulls out a sword.
And goes
and is
down.
like,
Yeah.
yeah, you're dead, boy.
Well, and then the game ends, and it's like,
And it's over, and you go back to
like
the
now
start.
go play PvP, and you're like,
Well, they're like,
yes.
here's a cool cloak. Go back to the start. Enjoy. And then I was like, I guess I'll do the combat trials. And then I was like, oh, this is really good.
yeah.
So I think what they were thinking, and they're correct, but they're also totally wrong. What they were correct about is that when you finished it, you've got enough gear and like you've got enough options of gear and options of leveling that you can go fight people and it's fun.
Yeah.
Which it is when you've got the proper combat decks, you got all that stuff. The problem is what you need to do if that's the case is make the game itself very much feeling open in the way that you want it to, not feeling like it's leading towards being open. Because what they've done is they built these levels that are very narrow corridors, you're surrounded by a very tall building or a tall wall, and you're fighting a guy in a corridor, and you're expecting it the whole time for you to like come through a door that you've unlocked, and then it's just like this big open world.
Yeah, I feel like it's
or a giant kingdom laid out before you, like in Dark Souls.
Yeah, and I almost feel like there's no similar kind of freedom that you get in like Dark Souls, where when you finish Dark Souls and when you're the kind of person that just wants to do PvP, you have the ability to kind of circumvent the sort of original purpose of the game, which is sort of moving between bonfires and like, you know, like fighting, like, you know, trying to survive against these enemies and like struggling and searching, because you can just teleport and you can just like, if I just want to play PvP, I can just go to the arena and just turn on online.
Well, you can do it
and
from
just PvP people.
You can PvP from any bonfire in this one.
Yeah, but it's the good the good PvP areas are a bit far away from.
No. So when you go into combat trials are the PvP, and you just hit it and it loads you into a PvP match.
Right. So that's like
it's like
the ranked stuff. Yeah.
And that's the best part of the game, because they've got 3 or 4. I think there's like 7. I think areas where you play, and they're like really cleverly picked. So one of them is you're on a giant staircase with like drop-offs on either side.
Right.
And it's really cool, and it's in a library, and it's awesome. And then one of them is like, you know, some other cool location on a bridge. And like it's very much, that feels like what the game wanted to be, but they realized that if they launched with bad servers, which ultimately they did, then you couldn't do the really fun thing. And you need to finish the game to do the really fun thing. And here's what I'll say from a game design perspective. I can see where they were coming from. They said to themselves, the game is PvP based. We want people to have fun with PvP.
Yeah.
But to do that, you have to understand the game deeply, because other players will.
So we're kind of just going to make you play.
We're going to force you to play the whole game.
It's a tutorial. It's a very long
whole
tutorial.
game is very long. It's like Assassin's Creed 3. You finish the tutorial and you have one mission, then the game's over.
Yeah.
Right? So it's like, that's a good idea and concept, but then you have to do something with it. Like, you can't just... You look at, what was the game that you guys played? Blade Symphony?
Yeah.
That was just, they knew what they wanted. They were like, we're going to make
this is a fighting game. Yeah.
And like, Absolver is that, but they were like, Dark Souls on top of that?
Yeah.
It just seems... Make it a Dark Souls with PvP, like Dark Souls is, or make it an Absolver, and then just be happy with what you've done.
Yeah,
Instead,
I think
it just feels like it's caught between those two identities, and the tug of war between wanting to be that bonfire roguelike Souls-like thing versus like being
wanting
an interesting
to just be a
online
hardcore,
experience. And it just, somewhere along the way, it sucks until you jump back into the PvP, and then I'm like, this game is so... Like, honestly, I was playing it last night, and I did not want to go to bed because I was having so much fun. Because the thing about the combat decks is that you think you've worked out how someone's fighting, and then they'll bust out a move, and you go buck wild. You're like, what the? I've never seen that shit. What the fuck? Like, we find a guy, and he's using, like, straightforward jabs. There's a really cool mechanic you can do. So straightforward jabs. He's got these short elbows. He's really punchy. And you're like, okay, I got this. I'm going to block. I'm going to outzone him. I'm going to come up with these heavy hits. Punch. Does, like, a feint, and then he'll swing around with an illusion kick that is like so wide that you dodge the way you've always been doing, and it clocks you in the head. And suddenly he's up in your grill and your guard is down, and he just beats you to a bloody pulp. And you just, like, it genuinely, for the first time since like Dark Souls PvP, I lost my fucking mind playing this. I was like, oh my god, that's the coolest thing. That guy, I'm gonna fucking get him next. It gave me all the feelings that I had when I played Dark Souls PvP.
Yeah.
But the problem is I had to slug through 10 hours of corridor fights to get to it.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's fighting games.
Right, but
it's...
Some of them are fun when you start them.
No. So it's like the whole like really long tutorial leading into the fighting game, leading into the actual like PvP. Mm-hmm. It's a good concept, because the huge problem with fighting games is that they're notoriously difficult to get into.
The onboarding is very hard.
Yeah, like getting all the information into your brain noggin
and being
is
able
like,
to use it.
Yeah, is like the single hardest thing to do in any fighting game, and it's why they're notoriously like closed off from everyone.
They're very what's insular communities?
Yeah, very insular, very hard to like get into. Like, you know, you try. You buy what you like. You pick up like Street Fighter 5, and you're like, well, I played the single player for a bit. It sucked, because it always sucks. You're like, I'll play online. I'll play the main reason why I bought this game.
Reamed?
and you just lose like 20 times in a row, and you're like, why did I spend $60 or $100 on this game that just keeps beating the shit out of me?
Yeah.
And you get to a point where if you really want to get good, you got to go into not even the single player, you got to go into the lab, you got to go into the training mode and train for hours and figure out
I remember
combos.
doing that in Dead or Alive 4.
Yeah.
Learning Ryu Hayabusa's like, you kick him up in the air and you teleport and then feather dance him into the ground.
Yeah.
I can do that move on an Xbox
and
for some reason.
It's this like unloading of like, not even that, just then the knowledge on top of it of knowing
When and how.
knowing what and when.
Yeah.
And Absolver is good because it gives you that in the single player, which is, the single player is at least wrapped up slightly different to just like a sort of long tutorial.
I think
and some NPCs do they fight in ways which kind of force you to learn
the different
certain techniques or learn how to like sort of beat certain things. On top of that, the idea of having to unlock a move by defending against it like 100 times or whatever.
Can you explain, because you did a really good job of explaining this when we were playing PUBG and we were talking about it. Can you explain why that's...
I was explaining it to you, wasn't I?
Yeah, can you explain to the listener, like...
To the fabulous listener at home.
Yeah, to the listener, you're in your car probably, or you're at your office or whatever,
Yeah.
but I think you did a really good job of explaining to me why it's very important that they did it that way.
It's really smart because so you start the game, you have just like 5 moves. Like you have nothing. And like some punk ass comes up and starts dissing your fly girl, and you're like, I ain't having any of that. So you start beefing him. And he starts, and like they just start fucking plowing you with a move. Like one move, like whatever it is, you just kept getting reamed by it.
They have like a shovel elbow that you didn't know existed.
Yeah,
It's
they
hitting
just
you every
keep
time.
doing something that just keeps wrecking you, and you're like, what the fuck? And the initial, like, there's like 2 kind of like sides to when that happens to you. There's like the one side where you're like, this is bullshit, like this guy's beating the shit out of me. And the other side of like, that move is fucking nuts. Like that move is OP, that move is broken.
buck wild, yeah.
That move is bullshit. And both sides of those coins come from like different perspectives. There's like the one perspective of like, that move is like awesome, I want it. And then there's the side of like, that move is bullshit, I some people may just go off and complain on the forums, but most people who actually aren't cockheads will be I'm going to figure out how to beat it.
Yeah.
And in both of those situations, you get rewarded. You get rewarded with
Learning more.
progress towards
more of the
learning
move.
that move. So it creates a thing where, and this is sort of like the big kicker, that the only way to use a move that you perceive as being stupidly broken and the best move in the game, and you spam, all you have to do is spam that move and you win every fight. The only way to gain access to it is to defend against it.
It's so smart, man.
Is to actually figure out how and when they use it and when to sort of react to it.
Right.
And so when you end up receiving it, you're like, well, I mean, I
know how to defend
I know
it.
how to beat it, so
And
I don't think it's that great.
It means that no move in the game is OP. I don't know.
Well, it means that
He's so
overpowered
smart.
moves, if a move is inherently overpowered, it's really hard to propagate naturally.
Something that I think...
So if there was a move that was brokenly OP, if there was a move that you press a button and you hit your opponent, they can't defend against it, one person would have it. And it makes a weird thing where like that one person could technically teach it to someone, and like that's not good balance, but it's a good story, right?
You can. Well, the cool thing is you can
meet some dude, and he's learned the technique, and it's like a lineage of this one OP move because you can't defend against
from
it.
what I understand, and I
Obviously there's no moves like that, but
there's a few like games that aren't like that, but they're so cool and like interesting. There's one, and when I got it, I was like, oh boy. There's one where you hit twice, and that sounds like a small thing, but in a game where you're very twitchy, you're very ready for
people
everything.
like react to the first and then
so you clock them with it, and then you duck back and you hit them with the elbow,
Yeah.
and then there's a cool thing you can do with you hit it with this sequence you can do that is like wildly amazing because people aren't ready for it.
Yeah.
But the cool thing was like one guy worked out how to do it on YouTube, and he posted a video, and then within like a few hours, people were like posting videos of how they worked out how to defend against it.
Yeah.
And I was like,
Because you have to defend against
so
it to
cool,
earn it.
right? So it's like,
So some dude's like, look, this amazing deck I have. Look at me just
he's-
beat
he's
people
like, I
up.
worked
And
out how to
everyone's like, I want that deck, so I'm gonna figure out how to beat it
and
first.
the cool thing I think about that is what you end up with is, and this is the reason I love the community of this game more than Dark Souls for this one singular reason. When you're out in the world and you bump into another bloke and they look at you and you look at them and then you start a fight and they beat you or you beat them, you always pick them up.
You always pick them up.
And it sounds like a small thing. It sounds like a small thing, but there is this level of like weird camaraderie from that.
Like we're all weird people
That
wearing
is
masks around here.
Here on Two felt in a video game for me for a long fucking time. You just had a fight to the death with a random stranger, and at the end of it, they said, "No, let me help you out."
You know what it is?
Yeah.
It's the early days of DayZ where
Oh,
people were
Ben, it's
friendly.
Daisy! Oh, someone drops you a can of beans.
Yeah.
Oh, Ben, and they drop you a can of beans and a 9mm ammo. You go, 1 bullet and a can of beans? Here's $500. Fuck. That's exactly, it's the same feeling though,
the
right?
same feeling,
It's
yeah.
this community who understands that you're playing the game, and here's what it is. And this is why the game design is so smart, right? You're playing the game because you want to have fun.
Yeah.
And this is what shits me to fucking tears with PUBG. Because it's got so big. And this is true of any multiplayer games. Why don't
It's Absolver straight into PUBG.
this is why I don't normally play multiplayer games. Is that
Right.
it's big enough, PUBG is big enough now that people are playing it for
To win.
to win. Which is, if you
Fair
didn't
enough.
know...
It's the point of the game.
No, it's not. If you didn't know at home, that's the dumbest way to play a video game. The only way you should play games, because unless you're a professional
Right. Have fun.
fucking
yeah.
video
Enjoy
game
yourself.
person, have fun.
Yeah.
And what I hate is when you're playing with someone and they only want to win. And I'm like, yo, dog, I'm here to just chillax.
That's a subtle subtweet.
It's not a subtweet. I'm not. It does. No one specifically, but I played with 3 people this week. You know who you are.
You can figure it out.
Yeah, it's-
James.
you
James.
fucking cuck. No, but like that. Like, I get if you want to play them to win. I get that. But play
Yeah.
with other people that want that. And that's the thing about Absolver is that everyone playing it feels like wants to succeed, but because the mechanic at the end is you pick them up, there's this sense of like
Even if
it
you,
was all
even if you
unfair.
play
It
to
was all-
win, you get you can just beat it. You can beat him again by
Yeah.
picking him up.
and it's all
just pick him up.
And there's a sense of like fairness there where you feel like you didn't lose anything if you lost, and if you won, you feel gratified. But it's like a gracious winning because like
it's a
I don't know.
gracious win because then you go over and pick them up.
It's so
I mean,
that one mechanic, and I don't know what part of humanity it taps into, is so fucking smart. And I wonder. I was thinking about this last week when I was first starting playing it, when someone first did that to me, and I was wondering, like, from a game development perspective, the one guy that thought of that, like, one guy one time was like in the development room, like in the boardroom,
Well,
was like,
it's-
guys, we should add a mechanic where it's already there for co-op stuff. Why don't we just leave it on always?
it's and beyond that, it puts the option for salty runbacks in the person who won. So salty runbacks are when you lose and
And you go at 'em.
You go back, salty runback.
Yeah.
It puts the option for salty runbacks in the hand of the person who probably isn't salty. So it means that if you're a salty boy and you're like, you know, like pick me up, someone can just be like, nah, you're a dick.
Yeah, and it's
Fucking
nice.
respawn.
But you know what? You know what I've discovered?
So the only you have to be a gracious loser to really if you're
Yeah.
being a dick and someone's just like, I'm just not gonna pick you up,
But it's like you have to be a gracious loser and a gracious winner, and that
to
entails
have
this
the most fun
And-
to get the most consistent.
consistent experience. And
Yeah.
you know what? It's the most consistent fun, and that to me is like buck wild that they made that into a video game that people are playing now on the internet with each other.
And even beyond that, when you're done fighting someone and you're like, all right, you know, we've played out 20 fucking matches.
We did it.
It's a weird thing where it's just like, I'm allowing you to die.
Right?
You can die now.
It's
It's this weird mind trip.
It's so because it taps into that part of it's you exactly right. It's the DayZ thing, right? Where it's like it taps into the humanity that's inside you, where you're like, I want to win, but
also, this guy just doesn't.
but I just want to.
really
I
wanna help
just
this boy out.
people are good inherently sometimes, right? 99% of the time, on the
when
internet,
given the option.
when given the option, people will be good.
Yeah.
When given the option, people will be evil. And I think this game does a good job of giving you always the option to be good.
Always the option to be good, and
And-
the evil option is always just not the best option.
It's not as fun.
No.
Like, and that's so smart. Like, one of the things that happens in the combat trials is you play a match and you can rematch. You can hit, like, the person that won, this is so smart, person that won gets to decide if you can rematch.
Right. So they can request a rematch.
So, well, yeah, but you can't. You can only go back to the lobby until they request a rematch.
Okay.
So they'll hit rematch.
So it's the
and then-
same as picking someone up.
Yeah, and that seems like a small thing because it's like PvP matchmaking,
Yeah.
whatever. But what it means is that I beat this guy, right? Like, but it was this guy beat me and it was very, very close.
Yeah.
And he rematched me and I destroyed his fucking asshole the next match. Like, I just reamed him across hot coals.
Yeah.
Right? And then I was like, I'm going to see if he wants a rematch because I want to see if he's learned from.
Yeah.
Because he had 2 moves I didn't know existed and then I just didn't know how to deal with them.
Yeah.
Worked it out. Second match, beat him. Third match, he worked out my moves, I worked out his, and it was this like half-hour long thing where like we just were like it was so good.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's really fun that's an option that you have. We didn't say a single word, like there's no voice chat.
No.
You just play the game. And the game is in itself a language of cooperation and collaboration while being about conflict that speaks to this like game design that is so fundamentally like rooted in understanding why people have fun playing games together. That's something that I think, people who are making Call of Duty, people who are making like, next Assassin's Creed, all the stuff that is big in AAA, what they're missing is the humanity in the design of the
They're missing
game.
a heart.
It's a soul, right?
Go fucking to Oz and get one as a lion.
You missed my soul's joke. I said it's like you're missing a soul.
Yeah,
Because
it's
it's like a dark soul. Yeah,
That
it's
is
yours.
funny.
Yeah, it's not good though.
Mine wasn't very good.
No, but like as much as that sounds cheesy or whatever, I think that fundamentally like
Yeah.
Absolver is about connecting with people. Call of Duty is about shooting people.
Yeah.
And I think that's why
Call of Duty is about connecting bullets to people.
that's why I love this game. And as much as it's like flawed and it's got some dumb shit in it,
some real fucking problems.
I just think that it's fundamentally at its core, its premise makes me believe in playing video games with other people again, which is something that I never fucking thought I'd say because I hate playing games with other people.
And that's the level of design of Absolver.
Yeah, that's it.
That's it. We're done. We talked. As our
We did
Absolver
it.
review, 10 out of 10.
I
Buy
love
it,
that
IGN.
One of my all-time favorite things is that when you say the word review, and I think we've ever done a proper review on it. I just don't think we're capable of reviewing stuff. All we
No.
do is like analyze
kinda
it and then
talk
say it's
about it.
bad.
Yeah.
But like, I feel like people are like,
Or shit on something and then be like, it's really fun.
But someone asked what we do the other day at the pub, and I was like, oh, the podcast is like a sort of, it's like a review mixed with an analysis. Like it's kind of both.
I had someone be like, oh, you guys should do a podcast talking about like the advancements of AI. And I was like, we say the C word much too often to talk about that kind of
Also,
thing.
that's a dumb idea for a podcast. But Ben, it's that time of the week. What are your recommendations?
Facebook.
No, what are your recommendations? What have you been
Uh,
watching? What have you been peeping?
Sam Raimi's Spider-Man 1.
Boy, isn't
good.
it? It's good though, huh?
Good film.
Great ending.
I don't know what else.
That last moment. I've been
Mario and Rabbids Kingdom Battle on the Switch.
watching,
It's surprisingly good.
It's made by Nintendo. Maybe no pick it up.
It's made by Ubisoft.
Is it?
Yeah,
Oh,
it's
the
Rabbids.
Rabbids. Are they Ubisoft?
Yeah, the
Interesting.
raving rabbits. They're the minions of the video game world, but they're actually kind of funny.
I played the Pokken tournament demo,
Pokken tournament
and I
demo?
got a nosebleed.
Yeah, it's a very.
It hurts me
Game.
in all the ways that Dragon Ball Z hurt me, and all the ways that Naruto hurt me.
I'm
I
looking
think
forward
that
to.
style
Are
of
you
action
gonna
game is
get? Are you gonna
dumb.
get Dragon Ball Xenoverse 2 on the Nintendo
No,
Switch
I'd
coming
rather
out
throw
September
my
22nd?
Switch out the window.
Oh, I'm getting it.
I'm gonna buy that new Dragon Ball Z one that's 2D and looks like a mobile game.
What?
So that's
Dragon Fighter Z.
Yeah, because it looks like Burst Limit, which is my favorite Dragon Ball Z
I
game.
don't think it's coming out on the Switch yet.
I don't
It's gonna
care.
be PC though.
I'll play it on PC. I
or
don't give a
PS3
shit.
Pro 4.
PS3. It's coming out on PS3. Revolutionary, making games for old
Facebook.
consoles. I was not done. I was also watching Shrek 4 last night. It's a great film.
It's really
It's
good.
really good.
I really like Shrek 4.
But as always, Ben, where can people find us?
Facebook.
DCM Social.
YouTube.
YouTube.com/DCMworks.
Twitter.
DCM_works.
Patreon.
Patreon.com/DCMworks. We got some new artwork going up soon. We got some new episodes going up of our Patreon only show where Ben and I read spooky stories to each other.
Spooky stories.
It's a good way to support the show, and you get some extra content. There is also a backlog of us just having a gaff and having a goof on there. We have a Patreon iTunes. It's called it's an RSS Patreon only feed. So you plug that into your smartphone or wherever you get your.
You can listen to all the
podcasts,
beep boops
and
that
you
we
can get
make all day.
Yeah, you can get it from wherever you are, which is like super cool. So shout outs to Patreon for making sure that happens. We said the pill at the top, so I'm gonna plug the merch again, but the pill is really nice. And I think that's it.
Yeah, I think it is.
We have a gameplay video going up. It's up currently. Where we play Absolver and I destroy the first boss, so go check that out. And I think that's all the plugs. As always, I'm at DCM I Hate Pie,
I'm at Little Citrus.
and we'll see you guys next week.
And you played too much, and now you've played too little, even though I said play more. Is it you deliberately like trying to like not do what I'm asking? I just don't understand what's going on. Is I guess what I'm saying.
I think it's fine. I mean, we can just like wing it. We wing episodes all the time.
No, we can fucking work around it. I never saw Assassin's Creed, so.
Yeah, it's okay. Wait, really?
No, I did see it. That's a pretty true. Okay, yeah. The thing about that Assassin's Creed episode is it was very, very bad. So I feel like that in and itself is like maybe an indication this may not work out so good then.
It's just Absolver. No one really cares
No
anyway.
one fucking gives a shit about this podcast. We've got like 3 people listening. It's you, me, and the dog, the lamppost dog. That's all there is.
Yeah.
Cool. And then I think that can either be the start or the end. I don't think it matters. And then I want... Yeah, no, we can do that.
Ladies and gentlemen, can I please have your attention? I've just been handed an urgent and horrifying news story. And I need all of you to stop what you're doing and listen.